Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast. A real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. What can I tell you about this week's guest? Well, Angela is a seasoned performer with 3 Melbourne Comedy Festival solo shows under her belt. She has been a support act for many of the big names in comedy, and she was a finalist in the Kings of Comedy contest and a preliminary finalist in Melbourne in the Raw Comedy contest. More recently, she has been a writer for Mainland Tonight and for Pitch. Angela has a rare autoimmune condition. So when COVID hit, she had to lay low until they found a vaccine. It gave Angela a chance to focus on writing and not comedy. Rather than her usual comedy writing, Angela enjoyed where her brain went when she was writing for children. Angela first started writing funny little stories for her niece, but soon realised there was a bigger audience for her stories. Angela's main aim as an author is for children to laugh while they learn. Angela grew up on a farm in regional Queensland, and this experience flavours her writing for a unique storytelling experience. She found it soothing while the world seemed to be going insane. During the first year, she published 4 illustrated children's books, and her books are getting rave reviews on Amazon and are beautifully illustrated using the latest in digital technology. Angela's books are perfect for parents who want to feel good about their choices and for children who love a good story. Your child will ask for them again and again, and sometimes that will be a good thing. This is the Strong, Single and Human podcast. Welcome, Angela. Welcome to the podcast. So great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to hear your story and sort of delve a little bit more deeper into your children's books. So tell us a little bit about why you moved from comedy, which I think is awesome. And, if anyone wants to see videos of Angela, they're online, so you can go and peruse her videos, which is great, to writing children's books.
So it happened during COVID. And so during COVID, there wasn't a lot of live gigs happening, so there wasn't a lot of comedy that I could do. And I picked up a remote writing job, freelance writing job with a company in Sydney. And so I was comedy writing during that period of time. I was on I'm going to tell you the long story. Sorry about this.
Go ahead.
So there's a comedy writing page on Facebook for comedy writers in Australia. And someone on there posted that a children's show was looking for humorous sketches to go on the show, and he posted the details and whatever. And I thought, well, I'll give that a shot. And I wrote a children's sketch, and they chose it, and they animated it, and it went to air. And it was about penguins.
What's the name of it? Can we see it on YouTube?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't think the actual sketch has a name. I don't think it's just the individual sketch. You can probably only see the full children's show.
Okay, bugger.
Yeah. Anyway, after that, I thought I could do this. I could write some more sketches and whatever. And a friend of mine's an animator, and she put me onto some animation software that does most of the animation process for you. It's all automated, and you just got to like drag things into your screen kind of thing. So you don't have to draw anything. And so I started writing little stories that I thought my niece would enjoy, and putting little animations on it. And I created kind of like a kids channel on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
and what's this software? Is this like an AI software? Is it like where it reads your words and then interprets them into a cartoon?
It's not AI. It's not AI. It's called Animatron. The registration for it is a little expensive, but considering what it does, it's kind of worth it.
Yeah.
So I only had a year's subscription to the site, and then I moved on to other things. But if anyone's interested in doing something like that, I definitely recommend Animatron as the software to do it.
Yeah, no, defo. So you established what's the name of this? Is it still established, this children's channel with the animatronic?
I haven't loaded much onto it. There's only a few little sketches that are on there. It's called Curious Ange.
Oh, okay. Curious Ange.
So if you go onto YouTube and have a look at the Curious Ange channel, there's just a few little children's stories that have been animated on that.
Okay.
But I'm not regularly maintaining that site at the moment.
That's okay. You're busy doing other things. You're busy kicking goals in the children's book area. So, okay, so you did the anime. Then how did you move into actual books, though?
So my boss in Sydney, the company that I was writing for, saw my animations and he got a bit excited about optioning my work. And there were discussions that were had. And it was all very exciting for me. But they ended up deciding that it wasn't the direction they were wanting to go in, and they didn't option it.
What's optioning? What is it? Because some people listening to this might not even know what optioning is. Well, I don't know what optioning is.
So basically it's buying your work so that they can sell it.
Okay.
It's buying the idea. So they were going to they were thinking about creating a children's channel with like a children's, not channel, show with my stories in it, and hiring some writers to
that's full on.
To use the formula that I was using for the stories, because I apply a formula to my stories.
Oh, well, we're going to have to get into that later. But yeah, carry on. Carry on. Don't want to stop you.
So, but even though it didn't go ahead and the deal didn't happen, it was still encouraging for me to go, well, I'm actually pretty good at this. I had success a lot easier with children's writing than what I ever did with comedy. Comedy is a really difficult art form. It takes a long time to get good at it.
Hats off to you for even having the cojones to get up on stage and try and make people laugh, or get up on stage in a comedy store where you've got drunk people who have been listening to half a dozen other comedians or whatever, and you've got to get up there and try and make them laugh. I mean, yeah.
So I decided, how can I monetize this? How can I create a product that people will pay money for? And so the logical step then was into children's books. And once AI started coming out that could create illustrations, it was just like, well, because I couldn't afford to pay an illustrator, but I mean, it's ridiculously expensive.
I can imagine.
And so now I use AI to create the illustrations.
Wow.
And I illustrate and write my own stories and self-publish the books.
Wow. And I got to say, right, there's a lot of people who are a bit concerned about this AI malarkey and saying like, oh, it's going to take all our jobs away, and, what AI, we shouldn't trust it or anything like that. But I was listening to somebody the other day who said, well, we don't know what we could do with AI. And you have just shown that you're doing something positive with it in the fact that you're using AI to illustrate your books, right? And so us as human beings are the creative ones. It's just us going out there and using the tools that are given to us, like AI, to then get creative, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, if I hadn't have found a way to create illustrations myself, I would have had to have waited until a publisher decided to publish my work and they team me up with a, illustrator and get the books illustrated that way. And it's incredibly difficult. It's a very competitive field and it's very difficult to get a publishing deal. And they move really slowly, and I'm quite an impatient person. It all happens way too slow in the publishing world. And so it was just like, this suits me down to a T because I can get a product done quickly.
And I suppose you're in control of that product from beginning to end, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes I can't get an illustration exactly how I want it. And I have to make compromises, creative compromises, given the limitations of the technology. But most of the time, the illustrations are pretty good.
Wow. So look, let's delve into your children's books, right? Because how many books have you got now? Is it 6 you've written now and illustrated?
Yeah.
And got out there?
And I've got a backlog of stories that I wrote around the Christmas time. So I've got about another 4 ready to go, and I'm just waiting until I work with my editor and get them as good as possible, and then I'll do them one at a time throughout the year. So there'll be another 4 this year.
So where do you get the ideas to write? Because like writing a children's book, look, there aren't many words in some children's books. There's a lot of pictures and maybe not many words and stuff like that. But I look at a children's book and I go, wow, where would you start? How do you get your ideas? And I know I'm going to throw a lot of questions at you here at the minute, but maybe we start with where do you get your ideas from first? But writing a children's book is not easy. I know there's not many words in it, but you've got to write it so that children like it. It's not like writing for adults. It's, writing for little people, and little people look at the world a bit differently from us adults.
So my ideas come from different places. So you take the first one that I self-published, and that was The Butterfly in the Meadow. And that is using a science fact. I want a point of learning in all of the books. So I Googled science facts and tried to find something that inspired a story in me. And so with the Butterfly in the Meadow, it's taking the fact that butterflies taste with their feet, and it has a whole heap of fun with it.
Okay, now I've just learned something new. They taste with their feet?
Yeah, they taste with their feet. So it's like, what does a leaf taste like? Oh, it tastes very leafy. What does a twig taste like? Very twiggy kind of stuff. And it just goes through that until you get to the punchline. It's the funniest one of the books that I've published, and it has this really hilarious punchline at the end.
And we're not going to give that away because that would ruin the book for everyone listening and their kids, right? But yeah, okay. And so is that what your stories actually, so you take your stories and like your theme as such is that you write the story so that there's a learning in it for the children that are reading it and also the parents, because I didn't know butterflies tasted with their feet. But now I know. I'm going to tell my son that when he comes home from school. But yeah, okay. So it's a learning. So that's your theme in your books, that you try and write a book write a book that has a learning in it.
Yeah, it's not always a science fact. Sometimes it's a moral, learning something, a good habit to kind of a characteristic that's desirable or something like that. But all of them have some point of learning in them. Okay.
And what age have you directed these books at? What age are they for as such?
It's 3 to 6-year-olds. Okay. So they're designed to be read to the child. And and they're all around the 400-word mark, which is appropriate for that age group.
Well, I was going to say, is there a certain like word level that you sort of have to pitch it to as such with the different ages and things?
Yeah. So there's different expectations for different age groups. So as children grow older, the books get longer. So for the 3 to 6 year old age group, it's between 200 to 500 words usually, typically.
Wow. Yeah. And is it and do you within that word number as such, is there like a specific level of vocabulary? Oh, it's Friday for me, so this is just, Is there a certain level of words, not vocabulary? I just said it. Yay. It's because I wasn't thinking about it, that you would use because it's at the correct level for that age group of children, because you wouldn't expect them to know like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah. So at that age, typically the child can't read for themselves. So the book's being read to them. So they'll recognize higher levels of words that are being read to them, rather than when you're writing for, the 6 to 8 age group where children are learning to read, then you do need to simplify the language a lot more because they're beginner readers. Whereas when the book is designed to be read to the child, you can get away with slightly more sophisticated language because it's being read to them. But even so, still within that, trying not to use too many big words or anything too sophisticated.
Yeah. Yeah, because the adult will understand it, but the child will just go, what? Say what? What did you say? What's that massive, great big viaduct, whatever, blah, blah. They're not going to understand that. And do they really need to know what it is? No. So how do you like, okay, so you've got a theme, right? And I'm trying to delve into this because I don't know whether any of my listeners have a penchant and think that they have a children's book within them, and it might be something that they want to embark on. But I'm fascinated with children's authors. Sorry, I sound like a stalker now, but with children's authors and how you actually create children's books, because they're so integral to the education and setting up the values and behaviours. Sorry to put all of this pressure on you, Angela, when you're writing your books, but your books are what help us parents to instill the right values and behaviours in our kids, right? So now you've got a theme. So now you've actually got a theme and everything sort of set up, right? I don't know, some learning value, some value that you would like to put within your book that you want a child to actually learn about. How do you start writing the book? Do you just sit down and let it flow out of you like a river as such? Pardon the pun. But or have you got a character? Is it Ange, your character? Like from your videos or?
No, there is a girl that pops up in in 3 of the books. There's a child called Becky. So when I have an actual child in the book and it's not animals that are in the book, I'll call the child Becky. So there's a bit of consistency through the books. And she has some fairly consistent character traits throughout the books. So, I mean, she's the main repeating character. But a lot of the books are about animals pretending to be humans, kind of humanizing animals. And to sit down and actually start creating a book, I mean, the ideas come from different directions. It might be a science fact that I've decided I can write a story around, or one of my stories, the one that I just published most recently, The Busybody Bee, I was in the shower and the name The Busybody Bee came to me, and I thought, that's a brilliant name for a children's book. And so I just decided, well, what would a story about a busybody bee be like? And so I just started creating a story around the title of the book.
Is that just jotting down ideas about like what a busybody would do, and then you just convert it to what a busybody bee would do?
Yeah. So I ended up coming up with a story where the other bees are calling her busybody because she's friends with all the other farm animals, and she stops off on her way to the wildflower fields to say good day to everybody, and the other bees are calling her a busybody, which makes her sad. But then the wildflowers start to wilt, and the bees are afraid that they'll die and they won't have any food. And Buzzy, the busybody bee, she goes, well, my friends can help us water the flowers because we're too small. The bees are too small to water flowers. They can't carry very much water, so they couldn't do it themselves. And just go, I've got all these farmyard friends. They could help us water the flowers. And so they come in and they have a whole heap of fun splashing water about and that sort of stuff. And then at the end, the other bees are very glad that she had all of these other friends, and they didn't call her a busybody ever again.
Wow. Well, there we go. We shouldn't have given all your book away there, because nobody will need to buy that book now. We've just given them the story, but that's okay. Okay, so once you've pulled your book together and written it and illustrated it and stuff, do you actually go out to schools and like test out your stories? Do you test out your stories on anyone?
Just a collection of friends whose opinions I trust.
Okay.
And I don't always take on their suggestions.
Fair enough.
But I hang out with a lot of very talented people, coming from comedy, obviously. Yeah. Comedians tend to be creative in other fields as well. And so I have people in that area whose opinions I trust, and I run it past them and they'll make suggestions for changes and that sort of stuff.
And do you incorporate your comedy into these books? Because although children may not get comedy as such, their parents are reading them as well. So sometimes, I mean, I've read some books where I go, okay, that was funny for me, but like my son's not got it.
Yeah. I mean, not all of them have like a specified punchline, laugh out loud point. But there's certainly an element of silliness and fun to all of them. And some of them do have punchlines kind of in there, little jokes and that sort of stuff. I was talking about The Butterfly in the Meadow before, and it's a really funny book. It's got a couple of punchlines in it. And
yeah.
It just has a lot of fun all the way through the book. So I am trying to create a safe space for the children, and also a space where they can have fun with learning.
Yeah, no, awesome. So are you going to go back to comedy? Sorry, that question's been bouncing around in my head. Are you going back to it, or are you going to continue with the children's books?
I think I can do both.
Oh, there you go. Multitasking. God love you, yeah. Angela. Multitasking. Okay, well, that's fine, because we've just had the Melbourne Comedy Festival down here, and I know you've been busy doing other things, so you haven't been able to come down. But, like, it would be great to have you back on the circuit as such, and down in Melbourne for the comedy festival. I know Brisbane have a comedy festival as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near as big as the Melbourne Comedy Festival, though.
Well, I'm not going to say anything, right? Because I would be biased towards Melbourne about everything. But no, that's cool. So look, where do people find you online? So we've mentioned about the website, the YouTube channel, if that people can actually find Curious Ange. Is it Curious Ange?
Yeah, Curious Ange.
Curious Ange. And then where can they find your books? Because you self-publish. So what does that mean?
I self-publish on Amazon, so my books are available on Amazon. I've also got people at the markets in Brisbane selling them.
Oh, cool.
pay them a commission to sell my books. For people who are not in Brisbane, then they're available on Amazon. And I'm a bit slack with social media. I'm not as set up on social media as I should be.
Oh, you and me both.
But my Instagram, I'm kind of developing that as my platform for promoting the books. So Angela Greensill Comic is my handle on Instagram. And I've got a lot of the content that's in the books posted on Instagram, so you can see what's actually inside the books.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how do you self-publish, right? Like, if I've got people listening to this who are single parents who are going, I've got a book inside me, like whether it's a children's book or their own book, right? Do you just send your book to Amazon and they just then print it on a book and print it out there, or how do you do it?
Amazon has a platform where you do it all yourself. So it's called Kindle Direct Publishing. It's Amazon's version of a publishing house. And so it's a separate website to Amazon, but it's still linked to Amazon. So once you load your book up onto Kindle Direct Publishing, it's then available on Amazon. Wow. And so the formatting for their software to get the look of the book right has to be exact. There's all sorts of things that'll just throw it off a little bit and it won't look like how you want. So there's instructions that you can get from Amazon. They either sell them as a book on Kindle, or if you go into Kindle Direct Publishing, the website, and you delve deep enough, you can get like a downloadable file that has the instructions on it, so that you can get the formatting right, so your book will look like how it's supposed to look when you publish it.
Yeah. Wow, awesome tips. So basically, can they get you? So just Amazon is where your books are if they need to have a look at them.
Yeah, at the moment. Sometime this year, I'm going to get registered on Ingram Spark, which will mean that I can then get it into retail stores. It's a distribution company, online distribution company. So retailers can buy wholesale from them. So I'm hoping to get into bookstores at some stage this year.
No, cool. That's awesome. Wow. So it's all going on for you, even without you being down in Melbourne for the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Sorry, just keep rubbing that in because I hassled you and said, "Oh, you're coming down because then we can meet for a coffee." But anyway, so look, thank you for just coming on here and talking about your books and telling us, giving us a bit of an insight into how you pull the books together and think about the themes and different themes and things like that you are writing your books on, and your journey from comedy to children's books. Because it's I would never have thought of going from comedy to children's books, but in a way it's sort of quite an easy segue across. But look, so I have one final question for you. One final question. If you could recommend a book, and it can't be your own books because we've already plugged them enough, but if you could recommend a book to my listeners, what book would it be?
The last really good book that I read that just absolutely engaged me, and I read it from cover to cover in one night kind of thing, was a book called The Midnight Library. And it's got some darker themes to it, so it's not suitable for children. It's a book for adults.
Adults, yeah.
And it's got some darker themes to it, but it treats it really sensitively. And it's just really, really well written. A really interesting kind of intelligent book.
Okay, cool. Well, this is the thing. See, I'm building up this long list of books that my interviewees are recommending to people. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks for that recommendation. Well, look, it has been a complete pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the program and chatting with me about what you're doing and your books. And look, I'll let you get back to sunny old Brisbane.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day today.
It is. Oh, we're a bit horrible and grey and rubbish down in Melbourne here. But yeah, I can see behind you. Not anyone else can see, but I can see behind you. It's like fantastic, brilliant, bright sky. And you look like you're in the trees.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I've appreciated the opportunity.
No, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. We'll speak again soon. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources and show notes, go to our website www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.